and good morning, and it's time for Politically Speaking with your host, Larry Novak. Heard every Saturday morning at 11:05. Join in by calling 508-822-1106. It's time for Larry Novak and Politically Speaking.
This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking, the most talked about Republican show on the South Shore. I thought today my guests haven't arrived, so evidently they're not going to be able to get here. So I thought we'd talk about the mayor's race in the city of Brockton, which is an interesting thing that's going on. You have three very determined individuals: Jimmy Pereira, who represents the Cape Verdean community, the incumbent mayor, Mr. Carpenter, and you have the challenger on the far left, City Councilor Davenport. He is probably the most radical member running, doesn't represent the mainstream of Brockton views. Maybe it's just older white Brockton views he doesn't represent. He believes in sanctuary cities. I do not. I believe that sanctuary cities are a bad idea and the rule of law should apply equally to all, which it doesn't seem to do anymore. The rule of law applies to different people, and that is not a healthy or a good thing. When the rule of law starts breaking down, people question about the fairness of the system. Is the system fair? People accuse people of wrongdoing now all the time, where it was never the case before. Investigations determine nothing. Millions are spent. These people that make wild charges need to be held accountable for their action in a court of law, and they should be the ones that pay for these investigations. The attacks on the Attorney General, are they helpful? No. Is that a legal viewpoint, his legal viewpoint of what he said? It is. Did he, he gave his opinion to what he is appointed to do. Now the attacks on the left continue to escalate because they didn't get what they want. Shame on them. It isn't a healthy thing. Should the investigators now be investigated? Hopefully not. Hopefully we'll put this behind us very quickly. And we'll move on. My guest, Michelle Mills from Hanson, has arrived. Hi, Michelle.
Hi, how are you, Larry?
I'm good. And how are you?
Thank you for having me.
Oh, anytime. I thought today, Michelle, we'd talk a little bit. There's another guest on his way coming, too. A little bit about the Republican Party.
Okay.
You and I have been involved since for years. And I remember your father when he was very active in Cohasset. He said something that's always stuck in my mind, Michelle. He said that the district at a week's meeting was changing and that it would be very unlikely, and I always remember what your father said because he was practical, it would be very difficult for us to hold the seat. Guess what? He was right at the time. And it's got weaker and weaker and weaker over the years. You would probably concur with me. Why do you think we've gone down to where we're at now? There's got to be a rudiment cause to it. I mean, we don't seem to attract, but nothing's attracting young people into organizations today. I belong to other organizations. Nobody joins them.
I'm a teacher.
Yeah.
I've taught middle school. And they just don't have the interest.
And you know what? Like the Historical Society in the city of Brockton, not active. The Little Red Schoolhouse Society, which I used to be president, was very active, raised money for the schools, not active anymore. It seems that nobody joins things like they used to.
I know. When we first started, we had 3 people in the Republican Town Committee in Hanson. And I did my darndest to get people to get interested in it, and I failed. But when Jeff Deal ran, there was some interest. Okay.
He did well. I mean, he didn't do well probably in the ballot box, but he excited people.
The girl...
People don't spend 10 to 1.
Right. Well, first of all, the girl that was working with him approached me and said, "Can I join the Hanson Republican Town Committee?" And I said, "Yeah, that would be great." And from there, everything blossomed.
Well, that's good. Is it active still, or did they, once he lost, all disappear?
Oh, shoot, no. We're still very, very active.
Good.
As a matter of fact, we've got an interest in the town meeting coming up, and we've got a candidates afternoon tomorrow. And we've got a couple of other things in the docket, and I'm frankly quite pleased.
It's showing positive activity, which it hasn't done in years.
But the thing of it is, these people that joined because they had a
belief in the candidate.
Right, and they had their own issues.
Which are important.
Right. Now, if you don't believe in anything, or if you don't have the time to believe anything, if you know what I mean.
Right. Oh, then you don't want to believe in anything.
You just don't approach people.
When I came back and took over Brockton, it had 16 people. Now I have it up to 122. And it had no money, and I got it up. I raised about $6,000, which isn't great. But in the city, that's a lot of money. And I'm doing something at the country club. I think it's June 19th to have the mayor's candidates. The big issue there is the immigrant population wants, to be an open city where the federal rules of law do not apply. It would be a disaster to be a sanctuary city. That's a compelling issue. Like you said, it will get more people out than has in a long time. I would hope it would. And the demographic changes don't help. Brockton always voted conservative. Well, it's not a conservative place anymore.
No.
That left us in the 90s, and it was always a conservative bastion of conservative Democrats. But I don't think there is such a thing anymore as conservative Democrat.
Probably not. Not with the people in office now in Washington.
We have Liz Warren, who's far out left. She's not somebody that I think is in the mainstream. I don't think she'll do very well nationwide. You have Gillibrand in New York, another far-out left-wing person. You have
AOC in New York.
Right. And you have Kamala Harris, another far-out left people. Right. They don't represent the main views of America.
They don't.
And how do we pay for all this stuff?
You don't.
Your father, Michelle, was very articulate. We were sitting at this. Bill Weeks must be close to 90 now, right?
At least.
Yeah. Your father said at one of the meetings, I always remember, how are we going to pay for all this? In the campaign, because we were being outspent. And he said, your father was more practical, looking at, where's the money going to come from? I mean, and I always appreciated that because we're always outspent. You know that. As a party, we're outspent. And I do not think it's helpful not to have a competitive two-party system in Massachusetts. Do you?
No, because you don't have a pro and a con. Okay? You always need to, if you have an issue, you need to find out what the sides are. You need to know what the pros are, the favors for this position or the disfavor.
and then you cut it down the middle and decide somewhere in the middle on the issue, that both sides walk away happy. But that doesn't happen in the country anymore.
Well, no, but you don't have to walk away happy all the time.
No, but there should be compromise on some of these issues. I think Trump has done a good job.
Who?
Trump, President Trump. I think, and I'm probably in the thing, I think he's accomplished a great deal during the tenure. The economy is booming. We have 50-year low in unemployment. They can't take these away from them.
No, they're trying.
Right. But
they're trying because they are afraid.
Afraid they're losing control of a left-wing agenda.
Right. And what they want is to have the immigrants come in so that the immigrants can vote for them.
It's to further their agenda, and they need more votes to do that. So they've got to change the demographic vote. That's what they're trying to do, and let all those immigrants vote. Well, if they're not a citizen, I don't think you should be allowed to vote.
No.
And now some of the cities in California are going to let non-citizens vote.
It's silly. It's not good for the country.
No, because if they come in and they want to, say, build a monument the immigrants do to their founder, does that mean that they outvote the taxpayers that have been there for years and who are citizens, and they say, no, you can't have more money for the library. We're putting into the statue for Stalin. That's what could happen.
And what I don't like is the fact that these immigrants come in and they expect
services.
They expect the benefits that we have.
And they shouldn't have them. They should be earned.
Yes. And actually, these people that come in, the immigrants that come in, should know our language, know our rules, know our Constitution, and then they can assimilate into the community.
I agree with that. I think that if they don't know the rule of law, they don't know the civic, the structure of the government, and they don't speak the language, I have always believed that it should be English first.
Yep.
And I believe that when the schools started teaching everything in different languages, that's not helpful.
That plus the fact that history became social studies.
And that's not good.
No.
Most schools don't teach social studies anymore.
What do they teach?
I looked at the agenda in Brockton. They don't teach social studies.
Geography?
They teach history and government. They call it government. But I would think that they should train them. I asked 50 young people recently if they knew what a ward political makeup of political party as a ward committees, town committee. They never heard of them.
I don't doubt it.
I mean, when I was a child, they used to bring them in and they used to explain the difference between the two political parties, and the teacher never tried to sway you one way or the other.
Right, which was good.
Right. Today, they try to sway you to their political philosophy.
They don't teach the facts. They teach their philosophy.
Right. And that's morally and ethically wrong. You should be able to choose what you believe yourself by giving all the alternatives.
And you don't have to choose what the teacher chooses, but you have to know the good and the bad
of each argument.
Yeah.
So what they should be teaching is how to analyze the good and the bad of those arguments. Right. When we were younger, do you remember these days when the town committees used to have booths at things and they would hand out literature and there was storefronts and people would come to the storefronts and help? That's all disappeared on both political parties today.
Yeah. I don't know when this really started. It seems to me like it just blossomed.
Right, and the trend in Massachusetts is towards unenrolled voters, but that means that you really don't stand for anything.
Well, it seems that way.
I always believed that the Democrats were the party of big government, more government intrusion into your life, and higher taxes. That I believe the Republicans were for individual achievement, lower taxation, and you will accomplish things on your own.
Okay, and both parties were for America.
America first. Yeah, that doesn't seem the case at all anymore.
I am really disappointed and disgusted with the Washington politicians. Really disgusted with them.
It's all about money now. Have you noticed that? It's all about chasing money. I think it was obscene that she raised $30 million to run for the Senate in Massachusetts.
She didn't help us.
Right. What has she accomplished?
Nothing.
And what challenger is ever going to be able to raise enough money to compete with her? Unless they're independently wealthy.
And that really shouldn't
be the criteria.
Right.
And you look around and you look at, it's very interesting. I did an analysis, you'll find this interesting, on the state Senate races. The Democrats outspent the Republicans in every state Senate race in the state that was contested, and they outspent our incumbents in most races. So, I mean, we don't have a lot of incumbents. There were 4 challenged. They outspent all 4. We lost one. We have 6. We had 7 before. We lost 1 seat. He raised $26,000. The challenger raised $360,000. So you know and I know the saturation of the male would sway people.
Well, I just am disappointed.
I am too. I mean, it shows you what thing. I thought Jeff Deal would do. I thought he'd do very well in Plymouth County. It didn't turn out to be the case, but. And I don't understand. They did work to get a vote out like I've never seen.
That's right. In Hanson, they got 60.4%.
Jeff did. That's very good. In Brockton, I have never seen the operation that Elizabeth Warren had. She opened 2 headquarters, had them fully manned. They turned out to vote for the entire Democratic ticket. Jefferson, there was no way. And I don't know, I've never understood. John Cruz did the best of the challengers in the city. He got in the 40s, which is what we always used to get. Nobody else came close to that. They really did a terrible number on the governor. He got in the, like 59% in Brockton. But, I mean, he really doesn't run as a Republican. He's a Republican, but he really, the association is lessened. He runs more like he's Charlie Baker.
Right.
Right. And I haven't seen a lot of party building. When I was the vice chairman of the state party and Ray Shamey was the chairman, we built the grassroots. And we were able to take 19 out of the 40 Senate seats. The way to do this is to rebuild the grassroots, energize them so that they go out and work. And, the word of mouth spreading does help.
It does. And I'm really kind of afraid for the
future.
Yeah.
Me too. I sit back, and I say, why? Where did we go wrong? I mean, I analyze it all the time. And I tried to keep... Michelle, I say this off the record. If I didn't hold the city committee, there'd be no city committee in Brockton. They would simply disappear. It takes a lot of work to do that. I sent you a year-end report, I think. I do all kinds of stuff to keep it active. I have a website up now. We'll do a fundraiser in June. I'll do a cookout. I do a Christmas party. If you don't show activity, people don't want to be involved. But they don't want to do the work either, Michelle, that comes down to it. There's a handful of people that do it. I have never seen, Michelle, our state committee man, has never been to a meeting in the city of Brockton. We are 70% of the Senate district. Gordon Andrews, if what you were elected for, if you cannot do the job, you should give it up, so that the activity level, let me tell you the difference, what it used to be in our Senate district. We were the best organized.
On track with the politics in the town, in the city of Brockton, in the town of Hanson.
I am. We are going to host a mayor's debate, and I'm going to do something we haven't done in years. There was no Republican running. But Sanctuary City is a major issue.
Right.
So there were 5,000 Republicans, people that identify with the Republican Party in Brockton. There were 24,000 Democrats and 22,000 unenrolled. If we can identify the Republicans, we can swing that mayor's election by supporting the candidate that is closest to our viewpoint. Maybe getting some people elected. We have some candidates running for school committee that I recruited. We have a couple of great candidates for city council. And if one or two of them win, we've gone from 0 up to some elective officials. Small steps, but done in, thing. We raised, as I said, $6,000 recently, that last year. We're way over that now. We've raised this year about 3 up to date, and we'll raise at our big fundraiser about another 5. So we'll hit, and don't forget, Brockton is the poorest community in that Senate district. It is not people with, great amount of wealth. I mean, we are going to equal the Democratic City Committee in fundraising, which is a major undertaking. The treasurer, Howard Holmes, does an excellent job. Jeannie Falcone, who you're friendly with, she's devoting all her time to Brockton right now, because we need to move because the city elections forward. If we pick up 2 school committee seats, we've accomplished something positive. We meet regularly. There's a quorum at every meeting.
Well, my attitude is the same way in Hanson. When I first became chairman,
there was nothing when you became chairman.
Right. And I just said, okay, listen, maybe something will come of this and maybe something won't. But what I will do is I will try to get people on board. And I knew for a fact that I needed younger people. Now, I did not know that Annette would come to knock on my door and say, could I help you with Jeff Deal? That I never knew of. So you just have to wait.
Step by step by steps. I think that we need to be more visible. I think that we need to work as a group in the Senate district. The chairman Easton was supposed to be here. He just got elected. I think he's a little discouraged because Easton is not very active at the present time.
He shouldn't be discouraged.
I told him the same thing. I'm going to have him, you should talk to him someday. I told him, little steps. Don't worry about that they're not showing up. I said, August 6th, we get our nomination papers for the town committees and the ward committees. So it's the rebirth of a political party at that time. And we elect new state committee people. I don't know if Jean is running again. She hasn't made up her mind. She just had her knee replaced. I don't know if you knew that.
I knew that she had something going on.
And she's in a lot of pain.
Yeah.
How long? I don't know a lot about men. How long does that take to recover from? You know.
But a knee replacement?
Yeah.
I have no idea because I've never had one.
Me either. But she's in a lot of pain.
That's too bad. I'm sorry to hear that.
I mean, so I don't know. She hasn't made up her mind, but there will be challenges. You and I both know it.
Well, tomorrow, for instance, okay, we're having a candidates afternoon, candidates forum in Hanson, and
where and when? Tomorrow, but where?
it's usually at the town hall, and it's usually from 3 on.
And this gives the opportunity to meet the candidates?
Yes.
And do we have Republicans running?
What I would like to say now is that we do not have anybody that would disagree with these people that are running tomorrow. These people that are running tomorrow are good people.
They care about the town.
Yes, but what I would like to find is somebody who disagrees enough with someone to just run against them.
Yeah, to encourage his interest to do
Right.
that.
And we need to get, this is my bugaboo, I guess. We need to get more people on the ballot, and whether these people disagree or agree with, or disagree with these Democrats.
Competition breeds new ideas.
Yeah.
It brings, new focus on bad policies of the past. It allows you to revisit policies of the past.
Right.
I agree with you. The more people that run, the better off they are.
And that's going to take baby steps.
Little steps at a time. It doesn't happen overnight.
No, I know that for a fact. And let me see, we also have, we also have a article, an issue with our zoning bylaws. in
That's an
Hanson.
interesting issue.
Well, tomorrow not tomorrow, excuse me. There will be an article in the town meeting, and we would like to vote yes to amend our zoning bylaws to prohibit recreational marijuana retailers in all zoning districts in Hanson.
I agree with that.
Well, yes, I do too. And the voting, if you vote yes on this, you prevent Hanson from being required by law to host recreational marijuana retailers.
I don't think it's a good thing to bring into cities or towns. I don't.
Well, I have a lot of mothers and fathers, a lot of parents that don't want their kids involved with.
Well, I don't want it either.
Yeah. So,
I mean, any type of narcotic that isn't helpful down the road. It deteriorates brain cells. It deteriorates one's ability to think. They become dependent on it. Look at the opium crisis in this state. It was the wrong path to go down when those doctors were handing them out. I mean, I went to the dentist and I had to have a tooth out. I'm having an implant done on the front here. I didn't take any painkiller afterwards. I mean, I don't believe in all that. You become dependent on it then.
right.
They prescribe it like it's candy.
No, I've had operations galore for my whole life, and I've never. The nurses have always come in and said, "Here, this is a script for you for such and such," and I say thank you, and throw it out. But that's me.
But that's me too. I don't take it. I don't think it's healthy. I think, if you can get through it, you're better off with it, because then you learn to absorb the pain better.
And you're right. And this
I think that's a great bylaw. Who put that on? That's a good thing.
The let me see. My vice chair is working on this.
He's
Big
doing
time.
a super job to do it.
She's doing a good job.
Yeah, she's doing a super job.
And the rest of that, if you vote yes on this, it means that Hanson residents will be making a statement to our youth that recreational marijuana adds no value to our community or to them.
Well, Michelle, all it does is take their money to further this habit. It becomes very expensive. And and then instead of making their charge payments or their mortgage payments or something, they fall behind and then they lose everything.
I know.
It's not a good thing. The dependency on drugs it's been the ruination of America.
You know, as I read this, I graduated from high school in '68.
I'm 69, 1 year behind you.
And so I think everything went downhill after we graduated.
Well, I think it did because I think the Vietnam War accelerated the decline of America. That's something. Because the Southeast Asia, they've always smoked that crack and everything over there.
Beetle nut.
Yeah, right. They've always, and their moral values and the breakup of the family unit has destroyed America. Richard Nixon said this very well. Once they get me, they'll go after the churches. What's happened? They've gone after the churches. And they're destroying the fabric that held the country together.
Yeah.
Those are not issues that we should think lightly. I mean, are there bad people in church? Sure, but there are bad people in every organization. Are they the majority? No. Are they the majority? No. They're the minority.
And, right.
Because somebody doesn't actually practice what they talk, and they don't walk the walk, doesn't mean the entire organization is corrupt. But the media, of the left-wing media, has attempted to destroy organizations to accomplish their political agenda. And it's sad. I agree with you. I don't think marijuana should be legalized.
I don't think so either. Let me see. If you vote yes on this, it means that we will not be saturating our small community with more drugs, and you have no impact on the personal use law. Adults will still be able to use the medical and recreational marijuana in their own homes.
It's just that they cannot open a commercial establishment that attacks young.
Right.
You know, for years we were warned about the problems with tobacco being addictive from, people smoking. Well, there was an addiction. People did get addicted to smoking, and they had major health issues as they got older. So the warning you're trying to do is the historical pattern. This will become something similar to that.
And the Hanson Town meeting is on May 6th.
May 6th. That's good to know.
7:30.
Now, how many people go to the town meeting? Is that
And that's the other thing that's going downhill.
people in attendance?
Yeah.
Before, it used to be overwhelmingly packed.
Right. I can remember going to the town meeting when I was a kid.
And you couldn't get in.
Right. And it was in the afternoon, and it was in the gym in the high school, which was the biggest place in the town.
Right, Cohasset. Now I remember that, but they don't get an attendance like that anymore.
No, they don't.
And Michelle, it's all of us. I think, when you look at it, we all have, because we're the leaders of an opposition party. My goal is to make sure we have candidates for rep and senator, in the next election. We have one against Michelle Du Bois already. He's a selectman in West Bridgewater. Claire Princess Cronin, I call her, because she uses her donation money to further her lifestyle. She raises large amounts of money, and she spends it going to the best restaurants in Boston and says staff meetings. Or she goes to hotels when they're in session and stays in Boston instead of driving home to Easton every night, which isn't that far. So, I mean, my goal is to come up with candidates for those offices run candidates that they might not win, but they will hold a Republican vote and, articulate a different policy. My goal, Senator Brady surely has issues, more than you realize, and he should be challenged. Will it be a tough race? Of course it will be tough. But the interesting thing with Senator Brady is he doesn't have the ability to raise large sums of money. He never has. So, I mean, somebody running against him to get a message out, I know Jeff ran against him. You're not going to win that district unless you come out of Brockton. You need to cut the Brockton vote, the Democratic piles in Brockton, and then be competitive in the other towns. I had told Jeff that he would have made history. Nobody has ever held that seat that hasn't been a resident of Brockton. So it tells me, and I made you the town chairman Hanson, it tells me two things. You have to be a Brockton resident to win it, and we need to find somebody in Brockton that can take Senator Brady on.
Well, you have to. Actually, we do the same thing in Hanson. We have to find somebody in Hanson because the person that we pick cares about Hanson.
Right.
Cares about the issues in Hanson because she
lived there.
Yeah.
I mean, so the Senate candidate, and I'm doing a book, and you'll get a copy of it. It's probably about 100 pages of the important Republican figures in that Senate district. And I've spent quite a bit of time putting it together. The typist is on the final pages of it. It's a map and everything with the statistical data. Because I hear from some of the town chairmen, I know that district better than anyone. What they say just isn't the fact. And I told this to Jeff at the time, you'll break through history if you're able to do this. But as you saw in that special election for the state Senate, where did the vote all come out of? Brockton again. And it overwhelmed them.
Brockton's a sanctuary city.
Right.
Which is not a good thing.
It's a bad thing. It's illegal immigrants who shouldn't be able to be there, and there's no law enforcement on the issue. It is a breakdown of morality. They're flocking to the city now. What's happening is most of the people that can't afford Cambridge are moving to Brockton. And that's where most of the postmaster told me the other day, most of the people coming to Brockton now are from Cambridge.
Wow.
I mean, which is going to affect the county vote down the road. Because if we get killed in Brockton, we won't be able to hold the DA or the sheriff because the Brockton numbers will overwhelm everybody. And we've got to cut those numbers down. And the only way you do that is by running candidates and holding a vote. So we've got to work on finding a candidate. Since, I told Gina I'm going to hold a Senate district meeting and invite all the chairmen to dinner. We'll probably meet in Hanover. I'll be sending you a letter. Hopefully you'll come. And we're going to talk about finding a Senate candidate. That's what we're supposed to be doing. And raising money to defeating that, viewpoint, or at least contesting that viewpoint. I mean, I hate to quote, but your father was pretty good at this. He used to say, we got to run candidates for everything. If we don't, we'll disappear. Now I found a quote that he used to say. I don't know if you remember this. Winston Churchill, he told me, wrote, your father read this one, said that a political party that surrenders its beliefs will disappear. A political party that fights for its political beliefs may lose, but will rise again. And that is true. Your father gave me that quote. I remembered it. And he had read some book with Churchill at a Weeks meeting, and he read that when I was very young. He got up and gave that quote. You know what? He was right. When you don't run candidates, the political party's apparatus disappears. When you run candidates, you might lose, but you'll rise again from the dead.
I often wondered whether the political party, Republican, should take some of the kids and teach them what we're doing and why it's important.
I agree with you. That I've always agreed with. We should get into Stonehill. We should get into Massasoit. We should get into Bridgewater. We should set up organizations on campus to encourage them.
And if you can't do that, because we are doing baby steps here,
right?
If you can't do that, then take the people in the particular committee with their kids.
Great.
And start there, and they can move with other kids. It'll grow.
Let's look at this because it's very interesting. When our former elected officials were Elliot Richardson, none of his kids are involved. There was Frank Sargent, none of his kids are involved. John Volpe, none of his kids are involved. There was Hastings Keith, none of his kids were involved, the congressman. Mm-hmm. Bill Weeks, none of his kids are involved. Mm-hmm. We lost the path somewhere that they didn't teach their kids to become more actively involved. Margaret Heckler, none of her kids were involved. She passed away this year. None of her kids were involved. Used to drive her crazy that she couldn't get them into the political process.
Well, my parents were involved in politics, and...
How many of your siblings? You had a big family.
Well, I have 4 in our family. I mean, I'm the oldest of 4. 3 brothers, 3 younger brothers.
Any of the brothers involved like you?
Oh my goodness, no. But
break. We'll take a short break to hear from some advertisers. This is Larry Novak with Michelle Mills from Hanson. She's the Republican town chairman. We're discussing the future of the GOP. And Michelle's given us some interesting insight into what's going on in Hanson. They have a town meeting coming up in May. Mm-hmm. And there is a candidates forum this weekend.
Yes, tomorrow.
Tomorrow at the town hall from 3 on.
Right.
The public is invited to attend. Michelle took over a committee that was non-existent and started working to rebuild it.
And I was very afraid when I did take it over because I did not want to
fail.
Right.
Failure shouldn't be what we look at. It's trying is what we should reward.
Well, I've heard that many times. So.
I mean, I do the same thing. I get worried that I'm failing at something, and I said, why can't I pull this off? And you work your tail off, and little steps forward are all we're going to take. The party's been on the decline since the 50s in this state. I mean...
Actually, both of them have.
Yeah.
Because look at the far left, as they call them.
Well, in Brockton, the Democrats don't even file a full committee anymore, and it's an overwhelmingly Democratic committee. So it tells you that there's a problem they don't understand the power structure, and they don't understand why a ward and town committee is important. They determine the nominees of statewide who's going to win a nomination at a convention, and that carries forth into a primary vote. So I don't think the broad public understands why it's important to be involved in this type of stuff. And that tells me, and I addressed this when I was chairman of Masters, so I used to fight with the faculty about civics should be one of the basics. When I was on the Brockton School Committee, I was always arguing for more civics involvement. But then I found when you did do that, they teach it from their own perspective. Yeah, and it isn't like when they were unbiased and they, give both sets. This is a Republican, this is a Democrat. You got to decide where your political philosophy is. The education system has been taken over by the left.
Well, I'm a librarian, a retired librarian, and because I have studied so much about disseminating information to people, and both adults and kids, and I was in both school and public library.
Now, did you retire from a public library or the school department?
I was a paraprofessional on all three levels. And so I say I'm retired, but when my husband retired, I retired.
Well, I can understand. And
then actually the last job I held, which was wonderful, but I was a line item on the veto, on the whatever. I was voted at, the librarian was voted down.
So they didn't fund the position.
Exactly.
Is the and libraries are very important, because it's where we store our knowledge, so the kids can go when they can't afford a book, they go to the library.
Right.
And I don't think there's enough in the schools to encourage more involvement in the libraries like there used to be.
Well, when I was there, my first job, I made a curriculum up for the kids.
Oh, that's good.
And I taught 6th through 8th grade. 6th grade, I taught them the basics. 7th grade, they needed to do a couple of paragraphs with correct English. And 8th grade, they had to give me a full-fledged report.
Oh, I think that's good.
I've done that anyway. Again,
are the resources when you were involved put into libraries that what they need? Do they get the resources from the local communities? Or is it the first thing they cut of the libraries?
Well, usually it was a joke that the first thing they cut is the arts, and library is part of the arts.
Yeah.
But if you see the kids in front of you, you say, all right, there's something I can do to get these kids to get motivated.
That's all it is. It's motivation.
And so I'm going to be using the same idea with the Republican Town Committee. We've got a Facebook page, all right? I'm going to be writing some civics lessons on that page.
Which is a good thing.
And it will be, everybody will be able to read it when they want to ask questions.
I think that's a good thing. We have a web page now. We have 2 minutes left. We have a web page the Brockton Republican Party does, and I try to keep it updated all the time. I post events that are coming up, candidates. I've got to do that this weekend again. And I have a Hall of Shame. Michelle Du Bois made it. And, well, you know, it's very interesting. She violates the law by tipping off a raid, obstruction of justice. There's an investigation on the president for supposedly collusion with the thing. Why wasn't Michelle Du Bois indicted? Because it was a Democrat U.S. attorney?
Maybe.
Probably. I mean, it's just not fair. The system is supposed to be blind and fair. Mm-hmm. And when it loses that blindness and fairness, it loses people's belief in the system. And we've seen so many organizations, the erosion of trust. And that's a malaise that's taking over in America. You don't see people join Rotary. You don't see them join historical societies. You don't see people becoming involved in the community. You see all these offices in these small towns going uncontested. That's not healthy.
Well, you see people get involved when they have their own problem.
That's the only time they get involved. Their problem motivates them to try to make change. I agree with that. But it is what it is. It's like the 25, we kid around here, but we have a $25 million chief executive of Bank of America. Do you know he took out he has no listed phone to the executive officers of Bank of America anymore? He took it out. He's paid $25 million by the stockholders a year, and you can't get in touch with his office. That's a disgrace. This is Larry Novak with Politically Speaking. My guest today has been Michelle Mills from Hanson, the Republican town chairman. I want to thank her for being here. We will be joining you next week with additional guests. Thank you for listening.
And you mentioned you wanted to know about the recovery time for knee replacements.
Yes.
They are 6 to 12 weeks for someone who is active.